Hi, I'm Anna.
And I'm Kent.
And this is Film and Family, podcast for filmmakers who want to see real progress in their film careers without sacrificing their health or relationships. Hit subscribe to never miss an episode.
Let's jump right in.
Okay. Today
It's a little late, okay? So I'm having a hard time. I don't know why I just got on a little bit of a late night high and I'm trying to come back down and be normal. All right.
Kent's like a hyper sleepy person and I'm like a grumpy sleepy person.
It's not always true.
Well, tonight.
So there's this company called Sweet Sweet Syria in Peachtree City that is at the farmer's market every Saturday. And I had a lot of their cookies tonight.
Blame it on them.
You should go to the farmer's market and become a patron of their cookies or other things they sell. And they're awesome. They're actually Syrian refugees and they're the nicest couple and their stuff is legit, authentic, super, super good. That's why I'm a little bit loopy.
Okay. So today we want to talk about this idea of writing your own role. And we'll start by just talking about how film is a little different than your typical job application process. I think that most of us and our parents grew up with this idea that you go to school, however much school that is, whether high school, college, master's, how far you go down the line of school. And then you graduate and then you apply to jobs. You look for jobs that are in your field. You apply to something that's entry level. You get a job, hopefully, and then you kind of climb this ladder to the position that you want.
Or you go back to school and get better education or certifications or qualifications. I know a lot of people who do that process to get better work, either a career shift or even just better positions within the work they do. Teachers will often go back to get their master's because that'll bring them a bigger pay raise.
But basically, you get the job. Your resume has a huge part of whether or not you get the job because it's based on your training and your expertise.
And I think recommendations can have a big part to play in that. If previous employers or people who've worked with you, we're obviously not experienced people in corporate America, but the people I've talked to who are family, friends, these are all things they talk about. So that's our secondhand advice to those of you who want to go that route. But most of us in film understand that it looks pretty different.
Yeah, I think that even if you understand this, even though we understood this to a degree, it's still sort of a subconscious belief that I need to have a resume of experience or enough training to get a job, or people are going to look at that.
I mean, I do look at them when I'm hiring and they're not bad to have, but I'll look at a resume and it might be stellar. And then I'll look at a reel and be like, man, I'm not even going to talk to that person.
Yeah, you can do that. And it works fine as sort of a day job. But I think that if you're wanting to direct feature films or act in feature films, that is a very slow pathway to try to get there. It's not guaranteed to get you there ever. We know a guy who won an Emmy and he decided to take it off his resume actually because in the film industry that was hurting him.
He went to LA and was applying for jobs that people were afraid to hire him for because he was overqualified for it because he had an Emmy, a short film that had won an Emmy on his resume. And he actually thought that might be why they were avoiding hiring him at some of these jobs in LA. And he took it off his resume and people started talking to him more.
He started getting jobs. So it might even be the opposite of how it works in the corporate world.
That story still baffles me, but that's his experience.
Yeah. So why do you think film is different?
Why do I think?
Yeah, why do you think that even in Hollywood, you're still working for someone else, but it's very different from other industries?
I think there's two reasons why. First of all, in film, the bread isn't, no, that's not it. The bread is in the pudding is what I was going to say. If it's bread pudding, that's the case. But the idiom goes, the proof is in the pudding because, no one really cares. Like Emmy, no one knows what that means anymore. There are so many student or regional Emmys that mean various degrees of nothing or something. And, you know, like there's all these other things you could put, or accolades or film festival laurels or awards on your resume or on your stuff. But in the end, I'm just like, do you have like even like a trailer, or like, could I see a body of your work? It depends on what you're applying for. Like, could I see some scenes you've acted in, like just the full scene? Because reels are kind of weird sometimes. Hopefully reels have good chunks of scenes as an actor. So you're trying to get a sense of who is this person? What do they like to work with? So I think that's part of it, is that the work has to speak for itself, and no one really trusts a piece of paper or previous positions.
Well, and even if you say you've won an Emmy, what does that mean? Like, what role did you play? Because a film is a team effort. So.
Well, yeah, and you might have won an Emmy for like actor or whatever, like your specific role. But the other side of that is that I feel like film is also hyper subjective. So you're not just trying to find someone who's going to hire you because you're really, really good at what you do and you have great recommendations and you're a joy to work with and you've got all the right things. Whereas any other job, it's like, well, they can do the job. I need someone who can do the job, who has a nice personality to work with and is available and wants to work. Well, in film, it's like you might have a great personality. People might love to work with you and you might have super great skills, but maybe your cinematography just isn't the right style for that project. Or maybe you're too tall for that role. And that would really throw off the dynamic because it's a science fiction thriller about a world with only midgets in it. You know, like it's that absurd kind of stuff that just keeps you out of positions and roles.
Or even like you're supposed to be the mother to another character and you just don't look like that character's mother for whatever reason.
Yeah, it doesn't work. So, you know, yeah, they've already cast the daughter or whatever. And so there's a lot of subjectivity as well as personal preference that goes into that process. That exists, I think, in every world, but in film, it's a heavily subjective medium. So without sounding depressing, there's sometimes nothing you can do with job to job, you know, things like that.
Yeah. That's a good point. So do you feel like there are like gatekeepers and barriers to entry? I hear people talk about this idea.
Yeah, loads of people talk about beating the gatekeepers or working around the gatekeepers. There are a few different schools of thought that you and I have discovered, at least. There's guys like, you know, there's people out there that are talking about their experience getting in through the Hollywood system or fighting and dying against it. Oh, man. Really wonderful actor, director who did Thunder Road, short film that went to Sundance. I cannot remember his name for some reason. He's really awesome. You should look up Thunder Road on Vimeo. You can watch it. Really, really charming short film, sort of a tragicomic, and he made it into a feature. He talks a lot about the struggles he's had in the festival and Hollywood systems. Even though he's had a lot of success, he's very indie. There are others. Noam Kroll has talked about gatekeepers a lot, but I think Noam Kroll comes at it from this perspective of the only way to beat the gatekeepers. I don't want to speak for him, so you should look at his own educational coursework that he offers on his website. But we've had him on the show, and he's talked a little bit about kind of getting around that Hollywood system. But then there's guys like David Sandberg, who went from like making Vimeo horror films or like YouTube stuff, went viral, and then he ended up with Representation and directed Lights Out, and then Annabelle 2, and then Shazam. So in 3 movies, he went fast up the Hollywood chain and is doing great for himself. And he's got excellent content online. So do I believe in gatekeepers? Yeah, I believe that there are some people who have a scarcity mentality in that business, especially in Hollywood. They're very competitive in LA. Do I believe that that gatekeeper is going to keep me out of anywhere? It might keep me out of working with them, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to keep me out of my own career, my own film making.
Well, and I do feel like historically it's been very, very hard. It still is very, very hard to make it in this industry. And so
whatever that means to you.
Yeah, whatever that means, to be in a position where you are making films for a living the way that you want to. And I think that some of the people who've worked very hard to earn that status might kind of protect it or feel like it shouldn't be easier for everyone else than it was for them. So sometimes I feel like I see that attitude of just like, it was hard for me, so it's going to be hard for you. And I'm not going to tell you how I did it. I'm not going to help you because you have to pass through that fire just like I did, which there's a degree of that anyway. But I also think we can be charitable, and there is no scarcity of work or of stories to be told. And if I can turn around and save someone the trouble that I've had to go through to end up where I am, I'm happy to do that. I think that is great if our world can become simpler and easier and less expensive for everyone to tell stories.
It's democratizing significantly. It is, and some of my favorite filmmakers are people that described a very rocky entry into even mainstream Hollywood filmmaking. Carol Ballard said he didn't know what he was doing for the first several weeks on set of The Black Stallion. He was only there because he was friends with Francis Ford Coppola from college. And that's one of my favorite movies ever. He was totally able, but he had to have someone believe in him and put him in that position. And he said he felt like he was just falling apart for like a couple of weeks. He said if there would have been a producer on set, he would have for sure been fired, but no one knew he was making that movie and no one cared. And so they just figured it out as they went. And he was an amazing filmmaker. He still is. I hope he keeps making some movies. We've actually met him. The other example is David Sandberg. He just ended up in the middle of a big Hollywood movie, and he said he had no idea what anyone's jobs were. He'd made movies by himself in like Sweden. And yet he's very liberal with what he's learned and his perspectives online on his YouTube channel. And it's really cool to see a Hollywood director who's making big stuff like DC comic movies and mainstream stuff like that, who's just talking about how he got the job. And he's very open about his work. And then even guys like Spielberg, he helps a lot of young filmmakers. Damien Chazelle, Greta Gerwig, I've all talked about Steven Spielberg helping them and giving them advice. And he's taken a lot of young filmmakers under his wing. He gave Vin Diesel the role in Saving Private Ryan because he thought he had a directorial career ahead of him. Ended up being an acting career. Who knows what the future will bring? But there are a lot of people, I think, who are the opposite of gatekeepers. I think they're actually really trying to help people.
Definitely. Well, and just to be clear, definitely don't think that this podcast, the intent is not to speak badly of anyone or anything. I just want to talk about some things you might think. You might think that there are gatekeepers. You might think that there are these barriers to entry, or that it's all about applying to jobs with a resume with lots of education on there, or that it's all about who you know, and just kind of present another option that might be a little different than that. Of course, there are many ways to get to the same destination, and you can pick the one that feels perfect for you. But here's just some ideas. So on that note, do you feel like it's about who you know?
I was just going to ask you that. I was just going to ask you that question. I'd be interested to know if you believe is it about who you know?
I think to some degree it helps. It helps to know people. You're not going to get jobs repeatedly just because you know people, but you might get opportunities to prove what you can do because you know someone who believes in you and gives you that chance. I think that's a beautiful thing. But of course, you can't just know someone and they'll, open it up over and over and over and over. And if you're not also having something to show for it. But
I'll add to that on the who you know. Who you know doesn't always have to be Orson Welles, who says, draft up standard rich and famous contract. Like at the end of the Muppets reference. Yeah. You don't have to know like some big Hollywood executive or someone who's just going to be like, I'm going to greenlight your future for you. Who you know might have more to do with what Tom McCarthy mentioned on DGA podcast interview when he was on the nominees panel for the DGA Directors Award for Spotlight. And they said, what would you tell a young filmmaker right now trying to become a director? And he said, find your people. Find those people that will make films with you in a way that's comfortable and safe. And let me say, those are hard people to find. They're not the people that are going to, just dump cash on you always. It's great if they happen to have that cash, but even if they're all broke and you're broke, finding the people that are like, I am going to be on this group, and there's the DP friend, and there's the actor friends, and there's the producer friends, and there's the director friends. And they all kind of get together and they say, well, we're all going to wear whatever hats we've got to wear, and we're just going to jump into this thing together. So yeah, you got to know those people. And If you don't have very many of those people, sometimes it starts with 2 people, and it's you and your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your platonic friend, or your, just together in your crummy looking apartment, and you go, what can we do here? What can we do with this little cheap camera? Let's come up with a story. And then it becomes what you know.
Yeah.
But I've heard someone also say it, and they flipped that statement around. They said, it's not about who you know, it's about who knows you. Which brings me to my point of the only way people get to know you is by creating things and putting it out there. Mm-hmm. And that is what happened with David Sandberg. He created a few shorts, got known in Sweden for them. And then he made Lights Out, the short film, and it went super viral. And then people from LA just started talking to him because it went so viral. And it was really strong. It was strong. They said, wow, this is directorial talent, and we could hire this guy to do something. And since this short went viral, make it into a feature. That's a big, huge example. But even if it's not that, you just got to make your stuff and put it into festivals, put it on Vimeo, put it on YouTube, share it with everyone you possibly can. Build up a website with a portfolio of stuff and just keep making stuff and share it everywhere. And that's hard. We realized this even just a little bit ago. We were like, wow, have we put our last short film anywhere that we made like 2 years ago? Have we shared it with anyone? And we went, no, because we didn't want to. So,
well, and if you look at a lot of modern directors and look backwards at their history and where they got to where they are, a lot of them are doing it this way. You look at Damien Chazelle, Barry Jenkins, Christopher Nolan. They all started with a feature or a short.
Usually a no budget feature.
Yeah. And they just got their friends together and made it. So I love that point that you brought up, Kent, that it's not just like some big hotshot that you meet at the right time and then they suddenly believe in you and give you this big, huge opportunity. It just doesn't look like that. Not that you probably think that it looks like that, but one of my favorite movies of all time is La La Land. And this film covers this topic really nicely. You see at the beginning, the Somewhere in the Crowd song where
network.
They come back home from all these auditions and go to a party to go meet people, and maybe they'll meet someone in the crowd who'll be the one
you need to know someone who will lift you off the ground.
Yep. So everyone's looking for that someone in the crowd, but then you feel very lonely and you're just surrounded by other people who are looking for someone else in the crowd.
Everyone's selling, no one's buying.
And those big shots are not there. They're not at those parties. Exactly. So, but then later, Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling, who play Mia and Sebastian, meet each other and become friends. And neither of them is a big shot. And they kind of make fun of each other for the positions that they're in. And yet they are friends and they are dreamers and they support each other. And because of that support and encouragement, they are able to get their shot. And also because Mia's character, if you haven't seen this movie, go watch it, writes her own play, right? He encourages her to make her own stuff, stop auditioning for all these other jobs and just write your own play until she writes her own thing where she's a one-woman show and she performs it, feels like a big failure, no one shows up. But of the few people who did, there actually was someone who saw it and invited her to audition for something else. And that connection did matter, but it wasn't just because she met this person. It's because she showed what she could do and she did what she wanted to be doing and getting paid to do, which was acting in a lead role.
Yeah. And she is an actress who wrote a play for herself.
The character.
Yeah. An actress. And then was seen by someone who needed an actress that fit her bill. I've probably mentioned this on the show, on the podcast before, but I'll mention it again because it's really relevant to this conversation. Jonathan Briegel, who is one of my favorite commercial DPs working right now. He worked at Variable and now he's doing a lot of more personal stuff. Really talented guy. He said passion work is so important because you allow people to recognize you as the person who makes the things that you most want to make. And if all you make is the stuff people pay you for, you'll never get paid to do the stuff you actually want to do unless you make it enough first that they start paying you to do it. And so I heard that and I said, well, I think it'd be really interesting to make a documentary about my son learning to read. And then just a few months later, I was working with this company that was creating ad content for a client that made reading curriculum for like 3 and 4, 5-year-olds. And I said, hey, well, I have this documentary here. So instead of doing this punched up comedic script, which you guys have already kind of tried, why don't we do this documentary thing instead and just show a kid using the curriculum and learning to read? And my son's the perfect age. And they looked at this little doc and they were like, wow, that's like exactly what we need. And then I got paid really good money to make a documentary about my son learning to read, which was like this absurd dream that I never would have expected to become a reality. Like people are gonna actually pay me to do that. And so most of us here are wanting to make full-time livings out of feature filmmaking in some capacity, whether we're actors, directors, cinematographers, editors, but whatever that is, why don't we do what Mia did and write ourselves a role, whether that's an acting role or behind the camera?
Yeah, I actually noticed another example of this when I've sold things on Facebook Marketplace. And I noticed that people sell things on there and they will take a picture of something that's in their garage and it's dusty and it doesn't look too good.
Like obscured by other things like cobwebs and blankets.
And if I can see the potential in something, sometimes I'll go buy it anyway, even though it looks really not good in the picture. And then I'll just dust it off. I'll put some nice pillows on it. I'll put it in a nice room. I'll maybe not even change the piece at all, but just the context of it. So I'm showing its potential and someone can see this thing, not just in a small isolated existence, but with some context around it. And then they want to buy it. And I've sold things for triple and 5 times what I bought them for, which I don't really do anymore. It's kind of this funny little side hobby to flip things on Facebook, but it just goes to show what a difference it makes to see something in context, to see its potential. And so if you can pick exactly the role that you want to do, what would be that ideal job for you, and show how you can do that before anyone pays you to, you're showing your potential. And then jobs will come around where someone says, hey, I'm looking for a director exactly like you who can make something like this. And you'll find those people or they'll find you.
Or make this exactly. In the case of David Sandberg, they just said, do you want to make that short film you just made into a feature? Because that was so effective. The concept was strong and everyone loved it. It got millions of views. So you already got an audience. So just make it into a feature. And guess what happened? It was just as good as the short. It had a lot more money behind it. And it had a big audience. And that movie made tons of money compared to its budget. It was very successful. So the point being, sometimes they don't even say, can you make something akin to this thing? You know, in my case, it was that my kid learning to read. It was exactly the same thing. I literally didn't do anything different. I had the same camera in the same apartment with the same subject doing the same thing with just a different book.
So once you've done it before, someone comes along who says, I need a video of a kid learning to read.
Right.
You are the perfect person to do that because you have already shown you can do that. So that's a case for doing passion work, just doing something that you love in exactly the role that you want, as opposed to trying to work up a ladder, doing sort of periphery jobs that are similar to what you want to do, but not actually what you want to do, which is not a bad way to pay the bills. If that's your day job, you'll probably learn some skills, but
kind of rhymed.
Bills and skills
and rhyming skills.
But if you do that and set aside the passion work, or just wait for someone to offer you a job to do the passion work, it probably won't come. And we've had to learn this lesson every single time we've created a different kind of video product in our production company from the very beginning. We started doing little wedding videos, and we started telling everyone that we were making wedding videos, and we'd never made one before, and no one was hiring us to make them a wedding video. And it was funny how we felt like
you had to pull teeth to get someone to pay like $100.
Yeah. We were like, what? It's super affordable and we'll make you a great video. But we just had not shown that we could do it. And it wasn't until we made a video for free that people started to pay us a little bit of money. And then we made some more videos for a little bit of money, and we started to be able to charge more.
And we got commercials right off the bat too. And we just said, we are going to make a video every week of something. And we only did that for a few weeks before people started to hire us. And it wasn't like we weren't going viral. We weren't putting it out all over the place.
It wasn't even amazing stuff.
It wasn't good
we were
at all.
Making.
Some of it never got finished. Honestly, I don't know how this happened, but like we just started doing stuff. And when you're out doing stuff, then people start to notice you as that person doing that thing.
Yeah.
And I yesterday was shooting pickups. This was a really big movie set. It was me, my camera, lonely me by myself with Anna, with a binder and an adult actress and our little 3-year-old girl. That was the whole kit and caboodle. So it didn't look like anything impressive. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're making a huge movie over there. Everyone be quiet. Some guy comes over. We're on the golf cart path in Peachtree City. And a guy pulls over on a golf cart and goes, hey, so is that a red Komodo you've got there? And I said, yeah. What are you into? Like, you're clearly familiar with what we're doing here. So, and he goes, oh, I've directed like a gazillion movies. He said, I've directed 70 movies and I've produced 120. And I said, oh, wow. Yeah. So it sounds like you're doing this for a living. And he handed me his business card and it looks like he makes a lot of movies for Lifetime. And he said he was making one movie for Lifetime right now. You know, I don't know if that's going to go anywhere or if we're going to work with that guy or it doesn't really matter. He was really nice, by the way. He just saw us and that is a potential. That could have been anybody, you know, that could have been the person you want to know. But what did I say when he said, what are you doing? We're making a feature film. We're doing some pickup shots on a feature film we're making right now. Oh, you make feature films. Bam. That is now your identity to that person who's known you for 30 seconds. So, you know, you're out there, you've got this big camera. Sometimes people don't even know what the heck it is. And they just go, wow, that looks like a real movie camera.
Or sometimes they say, oh, you're taking photos.
Yeah.
Cute photos. I don't know.
I think that's, anyway, that's an irrelevant example. But yeah, I don't know how they get that from. Anyway, it's just monstrous camera. The Komodo isn't too monstrous, but compared to a typical mirrorless photo camera,
they're not looking at the camera. Those are people just looking at the actresses or whatever.
Or the cute little girl.
Oh, look at that cute little girl.
So you're out there, you're out and about and you're doing stuff. And then people go, oh, look at those people out there always making YouTube videos or wedding videos or commercials or feature films. And in Peachtree City, we've become known as this sort of little production and people are starting to know who we are, kind of like everyone in Preston, Idaho knew about Napoleon Dynamite when it was being made. I don't think that was where they got their break, but you know.
And we have had people stop us and say, oh, hey, do you do other stuff? Do you do commercials? And
yeah, do you do these kinds of videos?
We've connected with people
just do other stuff.
Just who saw us out on the street filming things. So it's true that when you are becoming who you want to be, you have to practice like anything. You practice before you become that person and you practice by doing what it is you want to do and what you want to get good at. So if you want to be a piano player, you practice the piano. If you want to be a film director, you practice directing. Whatever you can practice directing, that's what you do. And the more passionate you are about it, the better, because that means you'll get to make more stuff like it.
And so that brings me back to how this film that we're making has done all those things for us to some degree so far. The who do you know is the people you can make movies with. We started in another state, not in Georgia, and we didn't have a very big network here. Making this feature film has forced us to start finding actors and casting locally for a lot of all the roles except for 2. We had to start reaching out to people who had locations, and we had to reach out to crew and stuff like that. And we have gotten to know our people here in Georgia, which has been a huge blessing. We've kind of been slow to do that. And then the who knows you, a lot of that has been happening from this film as well. And so it brings me to this point that Chris McQuarrie, the director of many things, including the last 2, soon to be 3 Mission Impossible films, 5, 6, and then 7. He had a really cool Twitter thread that he posted that you can look up and try and find about a 7-year stall that he experienced in his career after, I think, an Oscar nomination. And he was a writer and he was like, no one is hiring me to write. And at some point he realized he had to just make movies, whatever that meant. I just have to make them. So if I want to be a writer, I'm going to write them and then make them. And then I've got a bunch of movies that I've written. But he said the reason writers sometimes get a bad rap is because they just write these movies and then they try and hustle them around and say, everyone should make my movies. And it's like, why don't you make your movies? And then I think everyone else on the flip side sits around and goes, I don't know how to write scripts. I don't know have any good screenwriting material, but I don't have the money to like option a big script. Or maybe I don't have friends who are really talented at this yet. Or if I do, they're too big to, answer my texts anymore. So write your own. Do what Mia did in La La Land. The point is that we can't sit around waiting for everyone to do all the positions for us. At some point, we've got to say, well, if no one's going to write it, I'm going to write it. If no one's going to direct it for me, I'm going to direct it. And if no one's going to act in it, I'll act in it. Or my dog can act in it. Or my kids will act in it, or I'll make it about a tree and I'll just, whatever. And I'll animate it, and you use what you have and you write the role for yourself, or you make the movie for yourself if you're a writer, which you can do.
Yeah. And you can do this in any position that you want to be in. So you can come up with an idea and say, hey, I'm looking for someone who wants to help me make this idea or write this idea, and I'm going to direct it, or I'm going to act in it, or I'm going to sound mix it, whatever it is that you do that you would love to do.
If you're in Georgia and you're trying to fund your own feature film so that you can be known as a sound mixer, you actually are probably doing it wrong, because all you have to do is say that you're a sound mixer and people will hire you here.
There's a great shortage.
There's a great shortage of sound mixers. So calling all sound mixers, please come to Georgia. You'll be busy unless 1,000 of you come because of this podcast episode. Then you might be inundated with competition. But I would prefer that problem, frankly, for myself, because I'm not a sound mixer.
So whoever you are and whatever job you're interested in, you can think of, let's say you're a DP and you think, what would I love to shoot? What would be so cool to see on my camera? What would I love to capture? And write something based on that concept. If you don't want to write, you can find other writers and read what they've written. There's plenty of writers out there who've written stuff that they want to see made. And maybe you find something you connect with. But I also think that if you want this badly enough, for me personally, I'm like, I want this badly enough that I'm willing to do other roles. I'm willing to sound mix it myself. I'm willing to write it myself. I'm willing to do other roles besides directing to get this thing made. And that's how badly I want to see this story get told. And eventually I'll be able to hire other people and I won't have to do so many roles or wear so many hats. But if that's the price that I pay to get to make something, it's worth it to me. And I assume that the same is true for many of you.
Yeah, it's the cost of high-end certifications, higher education. It's just a necessary step in the process. And yeah, you have to fund the whole thing yourself. It just means it might still be costly, even if you're not getting paid very much for a feature. That'll get costly, if not in other ways, at least in time. And you can also make shorts, and you can also make YouTube content. And you can also make whatever it is you want to be doing. For us, we did some shorts, and then we decided it was time to prove ourselves as feature filmmakers. And we'll see what the future brings, but I'm not opposed to doing anything that will prove that I can do what I wanted to be doing.
So I encourage you to do the same, essentially encouraging you to show off what you're able to do.
Share.
I like permission to show off as sort of, you might think that it seems selfish or it seems like a waste of time, but you get paid for everything that you do.
And so I even share because it's like a service.
Yeah,
you
that is a better place to come from. No, it's okay. I was just quoting your dad. I don't know if he's quoting someone else, but
no, he's always said this. I don't know if he was quoting anyone. I don't think.
He's always said that you get paid for everything you do. And we've realized we always had to do things for free before we got paid to do them, which essentially helped me realize that we do get paid for everything that we do. Some things take longer to pay out, but that pay does come. And so one last little story to finish off. I had a discussion with a client one time that's coming to mind where she was talking about getting into the film industry and how it seemed to her that so many people had an easy way in, as if there was a party going on in a house and everyone was just going through the front door. And for some reason, she was not able to go through the front door. And the only way for her to get into the house was through the back pass, which was dark and muddy and full of bushes and thorns and all this stuff. And so she was kind of incessantly focused on, how do I get through the front door? That's how everyone else is doing it. That's how I want to do it. I should be able to go through the front door. It should be just as easy for me as it appears to be for other people. And the more we talked about this, she eventually realized that all of the time that she'd spent trying to find a way through this front door, this easier way, she could have just spent going around through the back door. And even if it was a harder road to get there, you know, no matter where you're starting from, you may feel that you're disadvantaged in some way, and you may be in some way. But no matter where you're starting from, if you start moving forward, that's going to get you where you want to go faster than trying to find an easy way. And so we kind of talked about that. And I just thought that was a cool image in my mind of like, yeah, even if I'm starting and I have a disadvantage and I can't go in an easy way, like I don't have family in the industry, I don't have some sort of in, I wasn't born into lots of money that I could use to make my own films. I don't have that easy in that other people might have, but I do have a way in, and I'm grateful for that. And I'm going to take it, and I'm going to go. And then once I get there, I'm going to turn around and see someone else in my same position, maybe lots of people, and go open that front door for them if I can, and make it a little easier, or show them the pathway that the trail that I blazed to get there, so that they don't have to hack through the bushes as much. So,
because you've chopped those bushes down.
Yeah. So I just wanted to share that story. I think it's kind of relevant that it's better to just move forward and do the best with what you have than to spend your time wishing it was different.
Well, and I think, frankly, there was no back way for many years into this business. And now more and more people are going through the back way. And now there are sideways and parachute ways, and I don't know, other ways that people are getting holes into this house, whatever. Anyway, you can overextend metaphors sometimes, is the lesson that we want to leave with you. But my point is, very few people that I know get in the front way. There are some people out there that are still doing it. You know, their dad is a super famous pop singer, or their uncle is a super famous film producer, director. Anyway, but almost all of my favorite filmmakers got in some sort of back way. Everyone we've mentioned today got in some sort of back way. It used to be that the back way was film school, and then the back way became festivals. And it still is, to some degree, some sort of just getting your work on some sort of platform that people will watch it. Spielberg walked into the studio and made people watch his stuff. At least that's the story I heard. And then Kubrick and those guys, they went through those were the film school brats. Spielberg was one of those too. And then, film schools is where you looked for filmmakers back then. And then Nolan, Rodriguez, even almost Chazelle, these people were the film festival children, right? Chazelle's road was a little longer in some ways. And then now in the YouTube, Vimeo, social media age, there's tons of platforms. It's getting noisier, more crowded, but doesn't change the fact that you've got to make stuff and you got to get people to watch it. So that's the only way. It hasn't changed really since the beginning of time. You make stuff and you get people to watch it. So
think about that. Think about, if you could write your own role, what would it be? And how would you get started? And how could you get started right now with what you have, moving towards that? And if you'd like some help, I have a program, my coaching program, which is on www.invisiblemansion.com, where I'm going to help you make your first feature. And I guarantee that result or your money back. So make your movie or your money back. It's going to be the best film school you could ever go through to make this feature. It's a chance to show what you can do, to meet your people. There's so many good things that come from that first experience. And the first one's the hardest one. So that's where I like to start. And we're going to do it different than Hollywood. We're going to do it in a way that doesn't require you to sacrifice your values or your health or your relationships or any of the other things you care about.
And most of you aren't in a position, like when you're in Hollywood and you're making millions of dollars, some people just throw that up and everything else up in the air. But like most of us have day jobs or side hustles or families or anything else that we're trying to balance. So that first feature in lots of ways feels like a big problem. So this is about balance. And those coaching principles are what kept us alive through a super hard first film.
Yeah, I'm not promising it will be easy. It probably won't. It'll be hard.
I can promise you it will not be easy.
Yeah. Can guarantee that, but you can do it. And yeah, that all starts with a consultation call. So you can go ahead and sign up for that on my website. That first call is free, very insightful, all by itself. You're going to see where you're at, where you want to go, what's stopping you. And if this is a good fit, if it is a good fit, then we'll see if there's an opening for you or put you on a wait list. So we look forward to hearing from you, and good luck writing your role. It'll be exciting to see what you do.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us on this episode. Hope you have a great week.
See you next time.
Bye.